What's up? This is Brett with Dub Academy. I produce music under the name Madhatter, and today I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can achieve a good sidechain effect using the compressor and the LFO in Ableton. So let's get started. So today we're going to be discussing sidechaining, and really what that means is that a compressor, in the sense of a compressor, it's listening to another audio channel, and anything coming out of that audio channel is going to cause the compressor to push another channel down. So with house music and EDM and most like popular commercial music, you're going to be sidechaining to your kick. So using the compressor, I'm going to show you how I got that. So this is what sidechaining sounds like, and we're going to be listening to this mellow channel here. That pumping effect is kind of the staple EDM effect that we're going for. So here's the full project here. Right, and then here's what it sounds like with no sidechain. Right, so what's happening here is I actually have two compressors that I'm working, but I'm just going to recreate this rack here. So I'll turn this off, drop a compressor on the track. Right, and so I have it set to automatically come to the view that you just saw, but most of the time it's going to look like this. So I come down here to the bottom menu, and this menu and this view is going to show you the gain reduction. So what that means is how much it's pushing it down. Right now we see nothing because we have nothing set from our input. So you'll turn this sidechain on and set your input to kick, right? And so first thing I do is I just turn gain all the way up, ratio all the way up. Right, and you'll start to see the gain reduction being, pushing down the track. The reason that I put the gain and the ratio all the way up is because without that input gain, it doesn't actually cross the threshold of 0 decibels. So this gain knob is actually increasing the input gain going into the compressor. So the compressor basically just thinks it's louder than it actually is, which results in a more intense sidechain effect. So you'll see as I play this again and increase this gain knob, you'll start to see the gain reduction become stronger. Right, and so I'll solo this channel so we can kind of hear it a little bit better. Right, and that you're getting the pumping effect, but if we increase this ratio knob, think of it basically as an intensity knob. In a later video, I'll explain the actual mechanics and the numbers behind the ratio, but just for now, think of it as just an intensity knob. If the ratio is all the way up, it's going to react to the input signal a lot more aggressively. Right, and if you want more aggressive sidechain, you can start to bring this threshold down. Right, but the problem with that is you'll see it starts to kind of mess up our sidechain pattern that we're getting. It's too intense. So that's when I will turn on this EQ tab. And again, this EQ tab only involves the input signal. You're not actually going to hear the resulting effect changing except for the sidechain. So I'm going to turn on this EQ tab. Right, and it looks a little bit more pretty, kind of straight down, and then this parabolic curve going up. So right now what I'm doing is I have a high pass filter coming into the input signal. So I'm going to click this little headphone and we're going to listen to what the compressor is actually hearing. Right, so that signal is what the compressor is actually hearing. So if we If we cut more of the lows out, it's basically only hearing like a little high frequency tap to engage to the sidechain. So I kind of liked it around like 300, right? Nice and sharp. So next thing I'm looking at is the attack and release time. And basically what the attack and release time are is when that signal crosses the threshold that we have set, it's going to do the gain reduction at a certain rate that you set. So I want, in this instance, I want it to basically dip as soon as it hears a signal, right? So I'm going to bring my attack time all the way down, maybe a little bit up, because you'll start to get a popping sound from the actual compressor. Let me turn this back up. Right here, the little pop, pop, right? So you can kind of smooth that pop out with the attack time, but if your attack time's too high, it doesn't even have time to engage the gain reduction. So again, like the reason I'm putting it so low is because I want it to dip as soon as it hears a signal from the input channel, which is our kick in this project. And then the release time is how much time it takes to release the gain reduction when the signal crosses back below the threshold. So if your release time is too long, it's going to stay pushed down too long. You'll see it's way too long, right? So we want it to just pump and just duck down and come right back up. Right? And so if I want, remember when we brought the threshold down, that's good. I mean, that sounds really good, but a lot of the times what I like to do is I will make a compressor do less work and just duplicate it. So it's two compressors kind of doing a lower amount of work, but achieving a stronger sidechain, right? So I'm going to duplicate this using Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. Right, now I'm really hearing that popping noise, so I'm going to smooth out that pop with the attack time just a bit. Might even bring the threshold down on the second one just a hair, so really get that pump sound. And if I scoop out less of the lows on the high pass in for the EQ side, it will stay down longer because you're hearing more of that low frequency content from the kick. Right, so I'm going to group these together using Command G or Control G if you're on Windows. Let's hear the difference. So here's without the sidechain we did. And here's the whole project with no sidechaining on this channel. And I still want it to pump even more, so I'm probably going to increase the release time on the first compressor. And sidechaining is insanely important for mixing, but also to achieve effects that may be used in an unorthodox way. So when you're thinking about sidechaining, you can get this same effect from using a ghost kick. In melodic bass, I see this used a lot to achieve that pumping effect for big saw stacks and stuff like that. There's a lot of different ways that you can get the same effect. And one of those ways is using something called LFO Tool, which is made by Extra Records, same people who made Serum. You can see the layout is pretty similar. And this is not a sidechain compressor. This is actually what's called a volume shaper. So I turned off our group of sidechain here, and we're gonna hear, it's gonna sound very similar, but you have a lot more control over how much you want it to actually duck, because you can just pretty much draw the shape in yourself. So right now it's repeating this shape here every quarter note. Right, so using LFO Tool, again, this is a volume shaper, so it's just going to, oscillate this shape every quarter note or whatever. You can modulate this rate here if you wanted. So if you wanted to... Right, you can smooth out that pop. You could smooth out that pop with the smooth knob here. It actually sounds really nice. I like that. But again, right now it's just making that shape over and over again. So if we wanted to, say, trigger this shape, use like an envelope, the same way the compressor reacts to an audio input signal, LFO can react to a MIDI input signal. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to set this input, there it goes. And so what I'll need to do is I'm going to take another MIDI channel, and I'm just going to make MIDI notes mirroring my kick. So every quarter note, right? You actually need to change this note retrigger tab. You can click it multiple times. The first click will just highlight the note, and the next one it will turn into, if you can't really see it, but it says ENV, which basically means envelope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called an external instrument, which basically is you can send the MIDI coming out of this channel to another source, right? So what I'm going to pick is the MIDI output to our channel, which is called mellow in this case, and it's looking for something that is able to receive that signal. So I'm going to go to mellow, and now I'm looking at an LFO tool. If there was multiple devices that could receive it, I'd be able to pick which one, but in this case it's just the LFO tool. So now every time this MIDI note triggers, the LFO is just going to go through that shape and stay up at the top. Right, so if I delete these MIDI notes, right, and when these MIDI notes start coming back around, that's when it will start listening to that MIDI input signal. Yeah, there's multiple ways to achieve the exact same effect. These are just two common ways that I see being used, using the envelope trigger on LFO Tool, or using the original sidechain method to have something duck from another audio signal. You have a lot more control using LFO Tool with how intense and the exact shape of your sidechain. Personally, I'm more of a fan of using compressors, working lightly stacked on top of each other. And this is all preference. I just tend to get a better result using compressors. LFO I will use for more aggressive things like bass music, heavy songs. That LFO tool really gets it completely out of the way for the kick. But in this case, I'm not exactly looking for that, for this kind of disco house kind of song that I've been working on. So here's the full project, and I'll compare both sidechains. Right, so that was the compressor. Here's the LFO. Make sure we still have our MIDI here. Ooh, where'd it go? There it is. right? And I'm actually kind of liking the LFO tool a little bit more on this one. Again, you just have that individual control of actually drawing the full shape. So stay tuned for more videos in the future. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment of some videos you'd like to see us go over, and we'll see you next time.